Tensions over the war in Ukraine flared anew after Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky made it clear he has no intention of engaging in historical debates with Russian President Vladimir Putin should the two leaders meet for negotiations. Speaking during an interview with British broadcaster Piers Morgan, Zelensky dismissed the idea that discussions about the deeper historical origins of the conflict should play any role in efforts to end the war. His remarks came as diplomatic speculation continues over whether face-to-face talks between Kiev and Moscow could eventually take place. In his comments, Zelensky signaled impatience with Moscow's long-standing narrative about the roots of the conflict. He stated that he would not devote time to revisiting historical arguments or examining Russia's interpretation of past events. According to the Ukrainian leader, such discussions would distract from what he views as the immediate priority, ending the war through practical and forward-looking measures. He indicated that the motivations cited by the Kremlin for launching military operations are, in his view, irrelevant to the urgent task of halting hostilities. Rather than revisiting grievances or ideological justifications, Zelensky stressed the need to focus exclusively on present realities and diplomatic pathways to peace. His language during the interview was emphatic, underscoring frustration with what he characterized as repeated references to history from the Russian side. The Ukrainian president framed these arguments as unhelpful to the negotiation process and unnecessary in efforts to secure a settlement. For its part, Moscow has consistently maintained that any sustainable peace agreement must address what it describes as the underlying causes of the war. President Putin has repeatedly pointed to historical, cultural, and political ties between Russia and Ukraine, asserting that the two nations share deep-rooted connections. The Kremlin has argued that Russian-speaking communities in Ukraine require protection and that NATO's eastward expansion, including Kiev's declared ambition to join the alliance, represents a core security concern for Moscow. According to Russian officials, these factors form part of the broader context that must be acknowledged in any comprehensive resolution. Putin has also previously characterized Ukraine as a state whose modern borders were shaped during the early Soviet era, suggesting that historical decisions taken in the 20th century have influenced today's geopolitical tensions. Moscow insists that these perspectives cannot be set aside if negotiations are to produce a lasting outcome. The possibility of direct talks between Zelensky and Putin remains uncertain. The Kremlin has indicated that the Russian president would be open to a meeting, but only at what it describes as the concluding phase of negotiations, specifically when a draft peace accord is ready for signature. At the same time, Putin has questioned Zelensky's political legitimacy, noting that the Ukrainian leader's 5-year presidential term expired in May 2024. Under Ukrainian law, elections have not been held due to the continuation of martial law. Zelensky has maintained that wartime conditions make a national vote impractical. This dispute over legitimacy adds another layer of complexity to already strained diplomatic channels. Beyond the debate over history, one of the most contentious issues remains territory. Moscow has called on Ukraine to formally recognize Crimea and the Donbass regions as part of the Russian Federation, citing referendums held in 2014 and 2022. Kiev and its Western allies have rejected those votes as illegitimate and continue to regard the territories as Ukrainian. These competing claims illustrate the deep divide between the two governments, not only over how the war began, but also over what its conclusion should look like. At the heart of the disagreement lies a stark contrast in diplomatic strategy. Zelensky appears to advocate for a negotiation framework centered on immediate ceasefire arrangements and security guarantees, without revisiting historical narratives. The Russian leadership, meanwhile, argues that the historical and geopolitical context is inseparable from the present conflict and must be addressed directly. Whether these fundamentally different approaches can be reconciled remains unclear. As international observers watch closely, the prospect of a breakthrough depends not only on battlefield dynamics, but also on whether both sides can agree on the scope and substance of future talks. For now, the rhetoric suggests that bridging that gap will be challenging. As the war continues to reshape Europe's security landscape, every statement from Kiev and Moscow carries significant weight. Stay informed with in-depth, balanced coverage of the world's most consequential geopolitical developments. If you found this report clear and insightful, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next critical update.